The rain hammered the RV's roof like 1,000 tiny accusations, each drop echoing the fracture in my chest. I stripped off my mud-caked boots in the cramped living area, my hands shaking as Cora's words from the cliffside argument replayed. I can't keep pretending this isn't tearing me apart. And then, without warning, she pushed open the narrow bathroom door, steam billowing out like a confession, her eyes locking onto mine. Not with anger, but with a desperation that stripped us both bare. I never thought a road trip through the wilds of western Spain would unravel the careful threads of my life, but there we were, Clara and I, two American expats chasing sunsets and second chances in a beat-up RV named Wanderlust. We'd met 5 years ago in a dingy Brooklyn coffee shop, both nursing fresh divorces from men who promised the world but delivered only echoes. Clara, with her quick laugh and those green eyes that could spot a lie from across a room, had become my anchor. Me, Cora Thompson, the one who planned every itinerary down to the last tapas bar, hiding my chaos behind spreadsheets and sarcasm. It started innocently enough, or at least that's what we told ourselves. After my ex-husband, Jake, cleaned out our savings and skipped town with his yoga instructor side piece, I needed out. Clara, fresh off her own heartbreak, her high school sweetheart turned corporate climber who bailed when the promotions dried up, offered the perfect escape. Spain, she said over cheap Merlot in her Astoria apartment. The West Coast. Rugged cliffs, empty beaches, and enough Vinho Verde to drown our sorrows. I laughed, but the seed was planted. 6 months later, we were rolling out of Bilbao in that second-hand RV. A 1998 Winnebago we'd scored for a steal from a retired fisherman in Galicia. It smelled like salt and old dreams, but it was ours. The first week was pure magic, the kind that makes you believe in reinvention. We'd wake to the Atlantic's roar, brew coffee on the propane stove, and plot our day over maps stained with olive oil fingerprints. Murcia's rocky shores became our playground, where we'd hike until our legs burned, sharing stories of what-ifs under skies so blue they hurt. Clara would tease me about my city girl aversion to dirt, her freckled nose wrinkling as she smeared mud on my cheek. I'd retaliate by blasting Springsteen from the RV's ancient stereo, forcing her to two-step on the uneven gravel. At night, we'd park on secluded bluffs, the ocean a symphony below, and talk until the stars blurred. About our families, mine, a sprawling Irish clan in Chicago who still sent passive-aggressive holiday cards. Hers, a tight-knit Italian-American crew in Philly who adored her but never quite understood her fire. About love or the lack of it. Men are like paella, Clara quipped one evening, her voice laced with that wry Brooklyn edge. All rice and no substance. I nodded, but inside something stirred. A warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. By the time we hit Fisterra, the end of the world, the air had thickened with unspoken things. We'd stopped at a roadside mirador overlooking the lighthouse, the wind whipping our hair like it wanted to confess our secrets. Clara leaned against the RV, her denim jacket slung over one shoulder, revealing the tattoo on her collarbone. A compass rose, inked during a rebellious summer in college. You ever feel like you're pointing the wrong way? She asked, her gaze fixed on the horizon where sea met sky. I swallowed hard, my heart doing that stupid flip it always did around her. Every damn day, I replied, but my voice cracked, betraying the lie. Because with her I felt found. That night, the storm rolled in like an uninvited guest. We'd splurged on fresh percebes, goose barnacles twisted and barnacled like nature's cruel joke, at a tiny fisherman's hut in Camarinas. Back in the RV, rain lashing the windows, we huddled over the tiny table, steam rising from our plates. Clara's stories flowed like the tempranillo we uncorked. Her abuela's recipes, the time she hitchhiked from Lisbon to Madrid on a dare. I listened, mesmerized, my fork forgotten. Her hand brushed mine, reaching for the salt, and time stuttered. Electric. Unmistakable. But I pulled back, blaming the chill in the air. The argument erupted the next morning, raw and unforeseen, as we packed for the drive to Muros. I'd found the letter in Clara's jacket pocket while tossing laundry into the sink, creased and faded, from her ex, Marco. Not just any letter. A plea for reconciliation, dated 2 weeks before we left. I was wrong, Clara. Come home. We can fix this. My stomach twisted. Betrayal? No, not exactly. But the omission? It burned. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, waving the paper like a white flag of surrender. She froze, her green eyes widening in that deer in headlights way. Cora, it's nothing. I didn't respond. I swear. But her voice wavered and doubt crept in like fog off the bay. We drove in silence, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the downpour. The cliffs of the Costa de Mort loomed like judgmental sentinels, their sheer drops a metaphor for how quickly things could plummet. By afternoon, we pulled into a deserted cove near Lax, the RV shuddering to a stop on slick gravel. I need a shower, I muttered, grabbing my towel, desperate for hot water to wash away the grit of the road and the grime of my anger. Clara nodded, avoiding my eyes, and busied herself with the awning. The RV shower was a joke, a narrow fiberglass stall barely big enough for one, with a nozzle that spat more rust than steam. But it was sanctuary. I cranked the knob, letting the scalding spray hit my skin, tears mingling with the water as I replayed the letter's words. Marco's promises, Clara's silence. Was I just a rebound? A distraction from her real life? The steam fogged the mirror, blurring my reflection into something unrecognizable. Then the door creaked open. I whipped around, heart slamming as Clara stepped in, fully clothed, rain dripping from her hair, her expression a storm of its own. Cora, wait, she started, but the words died as our eyes met. The space shrank, the air thick with heat and hurt. She didn't leave. Instead, she reached for the hem of her soaked tee, peeling it off with trembling hands, vulnerability etched in every line of her body. Not seduction but surrender. I can't lose you, she whispered, stepping under the spray, the water cascading over us both. Her arms wrapped around me, not possessive but pleading. A lifeline in the deluge. In that moment everything shifted. The betrayal of the unspoken letter paled against the truth pressing against my chest. This wasn't friendship. It never had been. Not fully. As the water pounded, washing away the miles between us, I felt the walls crumble. Her lips brushed my temple, soft and tentative, a question more than a claim. I turned, our foreheads touching, breath sinking in the humid haze. I'm scared, I admitted, voice barely audible over the roar. Me too, she replied, her fingers tracing my jaw, grounding me. We stood there, entangled in steam and silence, the world outside fading to irrelevance. It wasn't about the letter anymore. It was about us, raw, real, and teetering on the edge of something profound. When the water ran cold, we emerged changed, wrapped in threadbare towels, the RV's confines feeling both too small and infinitely vast. Clara brewed tea on the stove, her movements deliberate, like she was piecing together a fragile piece. We sat on the fold-out bench, knees touching, and talked, not accusations but confessions. The letter? A ghost from a life she'd outgrown. A hesitation she'd buried under the thrill of our adventure. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to jinx this, she said, gesturing vaguely at the space between us. You. Whatever this is becoming. I nodded, the knot in my throat loosening. Betrayal, it turned out, was just fear in disguise, hers, mine, ours. That night, as the storm abated to a gentle patter, we lay side by side on the queen-sized bed at the RV's rear, the ocean's murmur lulling us. No grand gestures, just proximity. Her hand found mine in the dark, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces long separated. Sleep came fitfully, dreams woven with cliffs and compasses, but for the first time in years, I didn't wake alone in my thoughts. The days that followed were a tentative dance, laced with discovery. We detoured to the enchanted forests of Fraga, where ancient chestnuts whispered secrets, and shared our first real kiss under a canopy of emerald leaves. Not passionate fire, but a slow burn of certainty. Clara's lips were soft, tasting of sea salt and chamomile, her hands cupping my face as if I were porcelain. I've wanted this since Brooklyn, she murmured against my mouth, and I believed her. The conflict lingered, a shadow. My fear of labels, her unresolved threads with Marco. But in the quiet moments, her sketching tide pools while I read Neruda aloud, we built something resilient. Yet drama has a way of circling back, like the relentless tide. A week later, in the cobbled streets of Noya, my phone buzzed with a call from home. My sister, voice tight. Jake's back in Chicago, talking to Mom about reconciliation. The words hit like a rogue wave. Betrayal echoed anew, not from Clara, but from the life I'd fled. I hung up, tears hot on my cheeks, and Clara found me slumped against the RV's wheel well. Talk to me, she urged, pulling me into her lap on the damp grass. I spilled it all. The humiliation, the temptation to crawl back to familiarity. She held me through the sobs, her strength a bomb. "You're not that woman anymore," she said fiercely. "You're here. With me." In that vulnerability, our bond deepened, humanistic in its imperfection. We weren't saviors or sirens. We were two women scarred and seeking, finding grace in the mess. But the road ahead promised more tempests. Marco's shadow loomed via an unexpected email, and my own doubts whispered of timelines too swift. Still, as we rumbled toward the golden dunes of Corribito, hand in hand, I dared to hope. Change, it seemed, started not with grand revelations, but with a shared shower and the courage to step inside. The dunes of Corribito stretched like a golden promise under the late afternoon sun, but inside the RV tension simmered like overbrewed espresso. Clara's phone had lit up that morning with Marco's email. A polished apology, laced with nostalgia for their Philadelphia row house and the life they'd almost built. "He's persistent," she said, tossing the device onto the dash with a clatter that made me flinch. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, navigating the sandy track, my knuckles white as bone. "Delete it," I suggested, sharper than intended. She shot me a look, those green eyes narrowing. "It's not that simple, Cora. He's not a monster. Just a mistake." Mistake. The word hung between us, heavy as the humidity rolling off the Atlantic. Was I a mistake too? Or worse, a corrective one? We'd crossed into this new territory. Kisses stolen in sun-dappled groves, whispered affections over candlelit picnics of queso tortilla and membrillo. But fragility lurked beneath. My own call from home had stirred the pot. Jake's reconciliation overtures felt like chains disguised as comfort. In the rearview, I caught Clara staring out at the passing pines, her profile etched with conflict. Betrayal wasn't just omission now. It was the fear that our fragilus could shatter under the weight of what-ifs. We parked at the dune's edge, the RV tilting slightly on the soft earth, and hiked to the beach in silence. The sand burned our feet, waves crashing with indifferent fury. Clara broke first, kicking at a clump of sea grass. "I love this us, but what if it's just escape? What if we get home and it all unravels?" Her voice cracked, raw as the wind-whipped surf. I stopped, turning to face her, the sun haloing her auburn waves like a reluctant saint. "Then we fight for it," I said, echoing the resolve I'd mustered after Jake's ghost. But doubt not, could we? Two women in our 30s, adrift in a world that still side-eyed our kind, even in progressive pockets like Barcelona or New York. That evening, as twilight painted the sky in bruised purples, we built a fire from driftwood, the flames dancing shadows across our faces. Clara pulled out her sketchpad, charcoal flying as she captured the curve of the dunes, but her lines were jagged, mirroring her mood. I watched, mesmerized by the intensity in her brow, the way her tongue peeked between her lips in concentration. "Draw me," I teased, trying to lighten the air. She glanced up, a ghost of a smile. "Already have. 100 times in my head." The admission warmed me more than the fire, and I scooted closer, our shoulders brushing. We talked then, really talked about the betrayals that shaped us. Marco's infidelity, uncovered via a careless text during a family Easter dinner. Jake's financial sabotage, leaving me couchsurfing in Chicago winters. "We deserve better," Clara said, her hand finding mine across the sand. "Each other." The romance bloomed in those stolen intimacies, her fingers braiding wildflowers into my hair, my head on her lap as we stargazed, constellations winking like conspirators. It was humanistic poetry, flawed humans choosing tenderness amid the chaos. But drama escalated when, 2 days later in the misty hills of Barbanza, Clara's phone rang again. Marco, this time voice to voice, his tone urgent. I overheard snippets from the galley where I chopped tomatoes for gazpacho. "I miss you. Therapy. Give us another shot." She stepped outside, but the thin RV walls betrayed her. "No, Marco. It's over. I'm different now." Different. The word lodged in my throat like a fishbone. When she returned, face flushed, I couldn't hold back. "What does he want?" "You." The accusation flew, sharp as a gull's cry. Clara recoiled, hurt flashing in her eyes. "He wants forgiveness. Closure." "Not me, not like that." But the seed of insecurity sprouted, watered by my own history. That night sleep evaded us. I tossed on my side of the bed, the space between us a chasm. At dawn, she woke me with coffee and a plea. Let's go to Santiago. The Camino. Pilgrims wash away sins there. Maybe we can too. The pilgrimage route called like a siren's song. Ancient paths worn by seekers from across the globe. We joined the trail from Finisterre, backpacks light, hearts heavy. The eucalyptus groves rustled with ghosts of travelers past, their stories etched in scallop shells dangling from staffs. Clara walked with purpose, her athletic stride eating miles, but I lagged, mind churning. Conflict brewed. Was this love or liability? Her email responses to Marco, polite, detached, felt like fissures. My sister's updates on Jake's charm offensive twisted the knife. By midday, near a crumbling stone hermitage, I snapped. You're stringing him along. And me? Am I just your Spanish fling? She whirled, backpack thudding to the dirt. Cora, stop. This isn't about him. It's us. I'm terrified, okay? Of labels, of losing you to your own doubts. Tears streaked her freckled cheeks and something in me broke. I pulled her into the shadow of the ruins, our embrace fierce against the stone's cool indifference. I'm sorry, I whispered, lips brushing her ear. I see you. All of you. The kiss that followed was apology and anchor, deepening under the indifferent sky, her hands in my hair pulling me closer. Not lust but longing. A bridge over the abyss. We pressed on to Santiago de Compostela. The cathedral's spires a beacon of absolution. The city buzzed with pilgrims, their weary joy infectious. We lit candles in the dim nave, whispering intentions. For clarity, for courage. That night, in a cramped albergue bunk, the RV parked outside like a faithful steed. Clara traced patterns on my arm, her touch a map to uncharted peace. I choose you, she said simply, and the words settled like manna. But climax loomed, inevitable as the Galician rains. En route to Pontevedra, a detour through the Rias Bikes' vineyards, Marco appeared. Not in flesh but via a surprise visit. He'd flown into Vigo, tracked us through mutual friends. Just to say goodbye properly, his email read. But when his rental car pulled up beside our site, face to face, the air crackled with unresolved static. Clara went pale, introducing me as my partner. The word hanging bold and new. Marco, tall and polished in chinos, extended a hand that I ignored. I get it, he said, eyes on Clara. But you deserve the world, not this experiment. The betrayal stung. Not his words but the implication that our love was provisional. Clara's response was steel. This is realer than anything we had. He left with a nod, tail lights fading into the vine rose, but the damage lingered. I stormed into the RV, slamming the door, tears hot. See? He thinks we're a phase. Clara followed, cornering me against the sink. He's wrong. You're my everything. Her kiss was desperate, hands framing my face, but I pushed away. Prove it. Cut him off. For good. She did, right there, block number, deleted emails, a digital exorcism witnessed by the humming fridge. Relief washed over me, but so did fear. What if I was the ghost haunting her? The emotional torrent peaked that afternoon, as thunderheads gathered. We drove inland to the Serra do Candon, parking amid granite boulders that echoed our turmoil. I need space, I said, grabbing my journal, fleeing to a overlook. Clara let me go, her silence a wound. Hours later, as dusk fell, she found me curled against a rock, pages tear-stained with ramblings of inadequacy. Cora, she said softly, sinking beside me. We're both broken compasses, pointing toward each other despite the storms. I looked up, her green eyes steady, and the dam burst. We cried together, not for losses past, but for the beauty of this present ache. Romance rekindled in the quiet aftermath. Her head on my shoulder, my fingers combing her damp hair, the world reduced to us. Yet the road whispered warnings. My family, upon hearing whispers of that woman from a nosy aunt, sent a care package laced with Bible verses and concern. Jake's texts escalated. Come home, Cora. This trip's a mistake. Conflict layered upon conflict, but in the humanistic core we found grace. We weren't flawless heroines. We were survivors, choosing empathy over escape. As we crested the Serra, golden light bathing the valleys below, Clara squeezed my hand. Together? She asked. Always, I replied. But shadows lengthened, hinting at the bi-tragic fork ahead. The valleys of the Serra do Candon unfurled like a quilt of emerald and gold, but the piece we'd stitched felt as tenuous as the wildflowers nodding in the breeze. Marco's visit had cracked something in us, not irreparably, but enough to let old insecurities seep through like groundwater. Clara drove now, her jaw set in that determined line I loved and feared. Radio tuned low to a mix of Joan Baez and Rosalia, voices bridging our American roots and this adopted Spanish soul. I fiddled with the scallop shell from Santiago, dangling it from the mirror like a talisman against doubt. What if they never accept us? I ventured, the they encompassing families, friends, the invisible societal script we'd both chafed against. She glanced over, freckles dancing in the dappled light. Then we write our own story. Screw the rest. Her words were fierce, but her grip on the wheel betrayed the tremor. Romance, we'd learned, wasn't immunity to drama. It was the fuel for navigating it. That night, camped by a burbling stream near Candrexa de Quaixa, we cooked paella over an open flame. Saffron threads from a market in Orense infusing the rice with earthly magic. As stars pricked the velvet sky, Clara fed me a forkful, her eyes locking with mine in a moment of pure, unadulterated connection. To us, she toasted with stream water in tin mugs. Messy, magnificent us. But betrayal's echo lingered, manifesting in subtler forms. My phone, silenced but insistent, piled up with voicemails from Chicago. My mother, voice quivering with that Midwestern mix of love and judgment. Cora, honey, Jake's asking about you. And this Clara. Is she leading you astray? The implication clawed. Me as the prodigal, Clara as temptation. I deleted them, but the poison spread. Clara noticed my withdrawal. The way I'd stare at the horizon during hikes, lost in mental rehearsals of confrontations I'd never have. Talk, she urged one misty morning, as we trekked a goat path to a hidden waterfall. The cascade roared like pent-up emotion, mist veiling us in gossamer. I halted, words tumbling. They think I'm broken. That this us is a symptom, not a solution. She pulled me close, water beating on our lashes like tears. You're not broken, Cora. You're blooming. Her kiss under the falls was tender, reverent, washing away the grime of inherited shame. We lingered there, bodies aligned in the chill spray, hearts sinking to the rhythm of renewal. It was romantic humanism at its core, acknowledging the fractures, choosing to mend with gentleness. The high from that interlude propelled us westward again, toward the rugged embrace of the Costa de Morte's final chapters. In Carnota we joined a local festa honoring the Horios, those ancient granaries on stilts, symbols of endurance. Bagpipes wailed, locals swirled in traditional dances, and for a fleeting hour, we lost ourselves in the whirl. Clara spun me under strings of lanterns, her laughter bubbling like cider, my hand warm in hers. Strangers clapped, oblivious to our story, and in that anonymity we felt invincible. This is living, she shouted over the music, pulling me into a slow sway amid the frenzy. But as the night deepened, a tipsy fisherman cornered us. Americanas? Careful, the sea takes lovers who stare too long. His wink was jovial, but the omen stuck. Climax crested unbidden, 2 days later on the cliffs near Ezero, where a river meets the sea in defiant fury. We'd hiked to the viewpoint, packs light with cheese and figs, when Clara's phone, left on silent, vibrated insistently in her pocket. She ignored it thrice, but on the fourth curiosity won. Marco again, this time a video call, his face haggard against a backdrop of Philly rain. Clara, please. One last talk. She hesitated, glancing at me, and I nodded, foolishly perhaps, toward the RV. Go. End it clean. I waited on the bluff, wind tearing at my flannel, the ocean below a churning metaphor for my gut. Minutes stretched to an eternity. When she returned, her steps were leaden, eyes rimmed red. He knows about us, she said, voice hollow. A friend saw your Instagram story. The one from the dunes. Betrayal, fresh and visceral. Not from Marco, but from the digital trail we'd left unguarded. He said. He hopes you're happy, but that I'm throwing away stability for fantasy. The words landed like stones and I fired back. Is that what this is? Fantasy. The argument exploded, voices rising over the waves' thunder. No. God, Cora, how can you even? She paced, hands raking her hair. He's the fantasy, the safe, scripted life I outgrew. You're real. Terrifyingly so. but doubt fueled my fury. Then why entertain him? Why the tears? She stopped, chest heaving. Because closure hurts. And I'm scared you'll bolt like I almost did. The admission hung raw as exposed roots. I turned away, tears blurring the horizon. The cliff's edge, a siren call to isolation. She bridged the gap, arms encircling from behind, chin on my shoulder. Don't, she whispered. Don't let fear win. We stood like that, entangled against the void, the emotional deluge mirroring the spray below. When I pivoted, her face was a map of remorse, freckles stark against flushed skin. Our kiss was saline with tears, a pact sealed in salt and sorrow. Not perfection but persistence. Back at the RV, we burned the printed email chain in the camp stove's flame, ashes scattering like exorcised doubts. The aftermath was a quiet renaissance. We meandered to the Isle seas, ferrying to that Eden of white sands and turquoise coves, where no cars intruded, only footpaths and the hush of paradise. Here romance unfurled like sea holly. Lazy afternoons reading aloud from Annie's Nin, Clara's pick, her voice husky on the erotic undertones we skirted with blushes. Evenings braiding each other's hair by lantern light. You're my compass, I told her one sunset as gulls wheeled overhead. She smiled, that crooked grin that undid me. And you're my north. Yet conflict simmered externally now. My family escalated. A letter arrived at a post restaurant in Vigo, my mother's script pleading, "Come home before you lose yourself." Jake's final gambit. A bouquet of daisies forwarded from Chicago. Note reading, "Second chances." I shredded it, but the weight pressed. Clara, sensing the storm, suggested a ritual. At the beach's edge, we wrote our fears on driftwood: rejection, regret, relapse, and cast them into the tide. The waves claimed them greedily, leaving us lighter, hands clasped in defiant solidarity. Humanism shone in these acts. Not grand gestures, but the daily grace of choosing witness over withdrawal. We laughed at our clumsiness. Clara's failed attempt at net mending with local fishermen, my botched empanada dough exploding in the oven. In vulnerability we found depth. Sharing childhood scars, hers from a father's early death, mine from a mother's unspoken expectations. "We're enough," she affirmed nightly, our foreheads touching in the RV's sway. As we looped back toward Bilbao, the road's end loomed, promising re-entry to real life. Drama peaked in a roadside cafe near Rabadio, where a chance encounter with fellow expats, two women hand in hand, years into their union, ignited hope. "It gets easier," the elder said over café con leche. "But it takes grit." Inspired, we plotted. Sublets in Brooklyn, joint therapy, family letters of gentle truth. Betrayal's ghosts receded, replaced by blueprints of becoming. Still, the bi-tragic undercurrent tugged. Clara's email from her sister hinted at family strain. Philly's whispering, "Be careful." My own resolve wavered in dreams of Chicago blizzards. Yet in the RV's cocoon, cocooned by her warmth, I clung to the emotional tapestry we'd woven. Threads of conflict and climax forging something enduring. The Atlantic at our side, we drove into the unknown, hearts open to whatever shore awaited. Bilbao's steel and glass skyline pierced the dawn like a return to reckoning, the RV's tires humming a reluctant dirge on the autopista. We'd circled western Spain's wild heart. Cliffs conquered, secrets spilled, loves kindled in the crucible of conflict. Yet the prodigal pull of home gnawed. Clara shifted in the passenger seat, her sketchpad open to a half-finished portrait of me. Eyes fierce, lips curved in mid-laugh, captured in Corabito's glow. "We did it," she said, voice soft with wonder. "Us against the mundo." I squeezed her thigh, the gesture casual yet charged. A silent vow amid the miles ticking down. Re-entry hit like a cold front. We docked the Wanderlust at a long-term lot outside the city, its salt-scoured hull a relic of our metamorphosis. The first night in a sterile Airbnb. White walls, no ocean roar. Felt like exile. Clara paced the kitchenette, brewing cafe solo too strong. "What now?" she asked, handing me a mug, our fingers lingering. The question echoed our deepest fears. Could this transplant from Spanish soil to American concrete? My answer was a kiss, slow, affirming, over the counter, her hands sliding to my waist, grounding us in the familiar spark. Drama reignited via postmarks from across the pond. Clara's arrived first. A thick envelope from Philly, her mother's handwriting looping with maternal ferocity. Inside, a rosary and a letter. Daughter, we've heard rumors. Come to Massachusetts. Let God guide you back. No outright condemnation, but the subtext screamed, love is conditional, queerness as detour. She read it aloud in the tub, bubbles popping like fragile hopes, tears salting the foam. They mean well, she rationalized, but her voice broke. I joined her in the water, back to chest, my arms a bulwark. Their love doesn't define yours. Ours does. My own missile landed days later. Jake in person, flying into Bilbao on a business trip pretext, cornering me at the Guggenheim's titanium curves. Cora, you look radiant, he said, all charm and cologne, but his eyes hunted weaknesses. This phase, it's adrenaline. Come home, we'll rebuild. Betrayal's final twist. Not just his presumption, but the flicker in me. The old script urging compliance. I laughed, bitter as black coffee. Rebuild? You torched it, Jake. And this isn't a phase, it's awakening. He left deflated, but the encounter left bruises. Emotional echoes questioning my worth. Clara found me afterward on the museum's plaza, staring at Gary's swirling forms like they held answers. What did he say? She asked, settling beside me on a bench, her warmth chasing the chill. I spilled it, ugliness and all, expecting recoil. Instead, she nodded, fierce empathy in her gaze. He doesn't get to rewrite you. Not anymore. That night, we walked the Nervian's banks, Bilbao's bridges arching like promises overhead. Under the Zubizuri's glass ribbon, she stopped, pulling a small box from her pocket, a silver compass pendant, engraved with coordinates from Ezero's cliff. For when we lose the way, she said, clasping it around my neck. Romance distilled to this. Symbols of steadfastness amid the storm. The climax of our odyssey unfolded not in thunder, but in quiet confrontation. A video call bridging oceans, families on both ends. We huddled in the Airbnb's dim living room, screens split. Philly Italians on one side, Chicago Thompsons on the other. Clara went first, voice steady. Mom, Dad, this is Cora. My partner. The one who makes me whole. Gasps, questions, my mother's hand fluttering to her throat. But Jake, she started, and I interjected. Jake's past. Clara's future. Ours. Tears flowed, hers of confusion, ours of resolve. No instant absolution. Her father muted, processing. My sister bridged. We love you, Cora. Both of you. It ended in fragile truce, hugs promised over pixels, the humanistic truth emerging. Love evolves, messy and merciful. Betrayal's detritus scattered in the wake. Marco's final blocked missive wishing well. Jake's silence a concession. But emotional depths plumbed revealed strengths. Clara's vulnerability in therapy sessions via Zoom. Unpacking grief's layers, my journaling transforming doubt to declaration. We planned concretely now, her graphic design gigs remote, my marketing freelance untethered. A shared lease in Brooklyn's Greenpoint. Walks in McCarran Park echoing our coastal rambles. Human and flawed, she'd say, toasting with Tempranillo shipped from Galicia. That's our superpower. The ending came gently, bi-tragic in its bittersweet hue. Not fairy tale perfection, but earned equilibrium. We sold the RV to that Bilbao fisherman, its sale funding a down payment on dreams. On departure day at the airport's glass expanse, we lingered by the gates, hands entwined. Spain changed us, Clara murmured, green eyes shimmering. But we changed each other more. Our kiss, public and unapologetic, drew glances, but we were beyond caring. Boarding separately for connecting flights, we parted with compasses aligned. Hers on a chain, mine around my heart. Months later, in a Brooklyn brownstone alive with basil on the fire escape and Clara's sketches on every wall, I wake to her humming Dylan in the kitchen. The conflicts, faded scars, stories for rainy evenings. Betrayals? Teachers in disguise, forging our fidelity. The romance endures, deep, dramatic, a daily choice. And in the quiet, as she sets down pancakes freckled with blueberries, I know. We didn't just survive the road. We became its map. Epilogue whispers. Families warm slowly. Philly dinners with tentative toasts. Chicago visits laced with questions turning to curiosity. Marco fades to footnote. Jake to irrelevance. Us? We hike the Hudson's Palisades, evoking Ezero's edge. Hands linked against whatever winds blow. Humanistic to the core. Two women, loving fiercely in a world that bends but doesn't break. changed forever by a shower's steam and a heart's brave leap.